everyone. Thank you so much to all of our media partners for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. I'm Amy Ventitulo, Washoe County Public Information Officer. As you might recall, some of our media partners, we do an event every election season, an in-person event that's really designed to inform you and give you a heads up on what's to come in our election year. And this year we are doing the same thing, but virtually. So again, we thank you for joining us. I will just give a quick overview of our agenda for today's media availability. Then we will go ahead and launch into our speakers who are here to provide you with the information. So first, we're going to hear a few words from our Washoe County Manager, Mr. Eric Brown, followed by an election update. This will be given to you by our Washoe County Registrar of Voters, Deanna Spicula, our Assistant Registrar of Voters, Heather Carmen, and State of Nevada Deputy Secretary of State, Wayne Thorley. After they share some updates with you, we have two brief demos we're very excited to share with you today. And that's two new online tools for our voters that no one else has seen yet. And that's our results election dashboard and our new wait times app. After that, we'll open it up to Q&A for you. And then we'll go into an update from our health officer, Mr. Kevin Dick. Just a quick reminder before I introduce our first guest again, if you can please make sure you're on mute until we get into our Q&A section, we would appreciate it. So first up, I want to welcome our Washoe County Manager, Mr. Eric Brown, for a few opening remarks. Mr. Brown.
Hey, thank you, Amy. So good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Brown. I am the Washoe County Manager. I came into this position in November, so this is really the first primary that I will have had a chance to participate in from the county management standpoint. As we do this, I'm reminded at how important the relationship between the media and local municipalities like ours is. And this is sort of a good example of it because given the changes that we're facing with an all mail-in ballot primary and the fact that that's different for a lot of our constituents versus what they're used to, all the more reason we need our media partners like you to help us communicate with the various audiences what's going on, what's different, what the deadlines are in some cases for some of the things that are changing. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank all of you for participating this morning and say that from my standpoint, because I used to be a media guy way back in my career, I always consider the media a partner, but this is really an important time to make sure we're working with you to get the word out about what's going on and so people don't forget and they're informed. So Amy, you have much better subject matter experts than me. That's really it, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. So now I'm going to turn it over to our election experts, Washoe County Registrar of Voters, Assistant Registrar of Voters, and State of Nevada Deputy Secretary of State for their update. I believe, Deanna, you're up first.
All right, good morning, everyone. Wanted to start by just thanking everyone for being here. And as Manager Brown had just mentioned, we do heavily rely on our media partners to help us get the word out about election-related issues. So again, very much appreciate you being here to hear a little bit of an update and maybe provide some of this information to the voters out there that may not know everything that they need to know for this election cycle. As Amy had mentioned also, we do normally do this social media event in person, but following social distancing guidelines, we are doing this as a virtual event. So I'm glad to see it looks like a lot of our partners are chiming in and they're here today. So it's great. And again, another thing that has also been already mentioned, that this election is unique in that we were faced with the COVID-19 pandemic and had to make a decision on how we felt we could best run the election and also protect the health and safety of our poll workers, our citizens, and our staff as well. So that being unique in that. And then also we're all the 17 counties, along with the Office of the Secretary of State, we collaborated on coming up with a plan. And our plan was to administer this election as an all mail-in election. So that's what we've been moving forward with. To date, Washoe County has mailed out over 291,000 ballots to registered voters in Washoe County. Of those, we have received over 40,000 of those voted ballots back. We're around a 14% turnout at this point, and we're just getting into early voting, and then we have election day. But we're receiving about 2,000 to 3,000 ballots a day, and we expect that will start to increase as we get closer to election day on June 9th. So for the process, a lot of people are unaware of the process for a mail-in ballot. So we mail out a ballot to all the registered voters, which has instructions on how to vote that ballot and return that to us. We also have provided that information in our sample ballot, which this year was highly geared towards the information about the all mail-in election for the sample ballot for this election. We've also posted some videos on our website that show how to mark your ballot and how to return it to our office so that it can be tallied and counted for you. The Secretary of State's office has also launched an information campaign to inform voters using various forms of media. That has been a huge push that people also, not just in Washoe County, but statewide, know what to expect for this election. So one of the things that some people are not sure how they can return their ballot. We accept ballots in the mail through the Postal Service, or they would have to drop it off in person. They can allocate a family member to bring that ballot into us, but it's only a family member that can return that ballot or the voter themselves. We are accepting ballots up through 7 p.m. on Election Day, or if they're postmarked by Election Day, we will accept them up through the 7th day after the election through the mail. Let's see. Once we receive our ballots, either by in-person or by mail, we immediately begin processing these as received and begin our signature verification process. Then they are, as we're going through the signature verification process, once we have confirmed that this ballot is, this person is eligible and that this ballot is valid, we will lock it in a secure vault until we begin processing, prepping those ballots and processing them to be run through our electronic scanners. Any ballots that are physically damaged or that come from our military and overseas voters will have to be duplicated onto a ballot that can be run into our system. And any ballots that have been marked incorrectly that go through our system and they come up as needing attention get adjudicated. Both of these teams are a bipartisan team that we hire to perform these functions for our office. And with that, I think I'm going to just hand it over to Heather so she can give you a little update on early voting and what to expect on Election Day.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Carmen. I'm the Assistant Registrar for Washoe County. And early voting had started on May 23rd, and it'll end on Friday, June 5th. We only have the one location where an individual can appear to early vote, and that is to accommodate the new law change that came through the last legislative session for same-day registration. So individuals that need to register to vote, they may do so here at the Washoe County Complex, which is at 1001 East 9th Street. And they need to bring their Nevada ID or Nevada driver's license in order to same-day register, and they can cast their ballot in our lobby area. What we have done, though, for the COVID-19 situation is we do have social distancing cones right outside the building so that people know where they need to line up and stand before they are called in by one of the poll workers to come into the lobby, and they're shown to a intake station that has been sanitized and also has a plexiglass shield in front of it to protect both the voter and our poll worker. Once they've completed the check-in process, then they are shown to an ICX Prime voting tablet where they can cast their ballot. And then once they are done with that, they exit our building, dropping off their voter access card. So then that way that can be sanitized and the ICX Prime can be sanitized for the next voter that wants to come in and cast their ballot. We're doing that also on Election Day, which is Tuesday, June 9th, here at the Washoe County Complex. It's going to be the exact same process again. We'll have individuals lined up that are 6 feet apart, social distancing, only allowing voters to come in when we have an intake station available and that has already been sanitized, and the same thing with the ICX Prime voting tablets. We want to make sure that everyone stays safe and healthy while exercising their right to vote. And they can also drop off their mail-in ballot as well at our office. We've had, a few people show up. We've had about 204 people cast their ballots so far at our location.
I'm just going to take it for a second. Thank you, Heather. I guess we're now going to go to Deputy Secretary for Elections, Wayne Thorley. Good morning.
Thank you, Deanna, and good morning, everyone. My name is Wayne Thorley. I'm Deputy Secretary of State for Elections with the Nevada Secretary of State's office. I'm going to talk about what the public can expect on election night and then in the 10 days after the election as far as election results go. There are a couple of recent law changes that are going to affect how election results are reported, so it's important to understand these changes. On election night, we will report election results as we historically have done. However, these results will be incomplete. We will report all the ballots that have been counted to date on election night, but as has been previously mentioned, there will still be ballots coming in the mail after Election Day, and that's because of a recent law change that now allows mail ballots to be postmarked by Election Day, which is June 9th. And as long as we receive the ballot no more than 7 days after that, the ballot will be counted. So the counties will be receiving ballots in the mail up to 7 days after the election, and those ballots will be counted. Another recent law change relates to same-day voter registration. Voters who go through the same-day voter registration process will cast what's called a provisional ballot. That ballot will be set aside and will not be counted until after Election Day, after we can verify the voter's residency and identity, and also after we verify that the voter did not already cast a ballot in this election in another county. So on election night, again, results will be reported, but they will be incomplete. If there are close races, the winner of those races will not be known until sometime after Election Day. And of course, the candidate who is ahead on election night might not be the candidate who ultimately wins the election. As far as timeline goes, we will continue to update election results daily after the election until all the results are final and the results go through what's known as the canvass or certification process. And the counties have up to 10 days after the election to do that. So we will continue to update election results daily, definitely through the 7 days that we'll be getting ballots in the mail after the election. Then we will be counting the provisional ballots, those that were cast by same-day voters who went through the same-day registration process. And then closer to 10 days after the election, the county will go through the canvass or certification process. And then only after that point will the results be final and official, and we'll have complete election results. I'll turn it back to Amy.
Thank you so much. And that was perfect timing for the next thing we want to share, which is our results dashboard and our wait times app. And I want to introduce Jay Johnson with Washoe County Technology Services. I know he and the tech team and the voters team have been working on these tools for over a year to ensure that they're ready for this election and we can bring this new technology to voters. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Jay Johnson.
Thank you, Amy, and I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see it. So both of the applications that I'm going to show you today will be available, accessible through the Registrar of Voters page, web page. The first one is up already, and this is the wait time application. You would launch it by clicking right here. So let's take a look at that first. As was previously mentioned, we only have one physical voting location for this primary. So when you click the link, it launches this map. It shows you the one location we have, and right now there's no one in line, so it says no wait. If there were additional people in line, this would change to an estimated wait time of 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it might be. In addition, the user can click on the poll location and get a little bit more information. Again, tells them the poll's open and what the address of it is, and again, what the wait time is, as well as when is the last time that it was updated, that wait time was updated. And if for some reason the wait time doesn't get updated for a couple of hours, it will fade out. You can see now actually in the background, the wait time just changed to 10 minutes. So it's a dynamic thing. The user doesn't have to click or refresh or anything. The final functionality of this page is the user can click on this link to get directions. And if they click here, it'll open Google Maps or iMaps or whatever the native navigation application on a mobile device would be, for instance. So that is up and live right now. And as I say, you would launch that right from the Registrar of Voters page. The second thing I want to show you is the results dashboard. And this is what we're going to be putting up the night of voting after the polls close and as results start getting tabulated. So this is using example data from the 2018 primary. And here we see, it's unofficial results because, as was previously mentioned, there's a lot of verification that has to occur, date and time when it was last updated. The interface here, the most obvious one is this bar chart, right? So here we have 3 buttons. The user can choose to look at federal races, state races, or local races. And as they go to each of those buttons, the races that are available are updated. And they can click on any of these. Here was the Democratic County Assessor results for 2018 election primary. And there was the Republican for the same office. You can see just very easily a graphic overview of the relative number of votes. If you hover over the bar, it gives you more specific details. So that's pretty much it for the bar chart category. Down at the bottom here, we have some additional tabs. So for the race that's shown, you can click on the table and it gives you tabular results and percents, which if you're really interested in the specific numbers, that might be an easier way to go. The next tab is a overall tab, and this is turnout for the overall election and lists Democratic, Republican, nonpartisan, and total election turnout results. The numbers. The final tab is just an explanation tab if anything needs to go in here. In this case, this is just saying these are the 2018 results and are provided as an example of what 2020 is going to look like. So that is a really whirlwind overview. And again, once this dashboard goes live, it will be on the Registrar of Voters homepage. And that's it for me. Back to Amy.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. So now we're going to open up for Q&A. So media partners, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question if you have one.
This is Stanton Nicolo. Do you anticipate results for the ballots that have come in by election day to be faster because there's no transportation time?
ICX.
Sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty unmuting myself. We expect we'll start releasing results when the Secretary of State's office has confirmed that all the polls across the state have closed. And at that point, it should include most of the ballots that we have received up until Election Day, and then the early voting and Election Day numbers from our polling location. I do assume that it will be faster. We should probably see those results being posted earlier than we normally would. And that's just due to the fact that we don't have over 80 locations having to drive those results in here. We don't have to wait for them. So.
Hey, it's Paul from KUNR. How y'all doing? I have a quick clarification. On the local level, the council, all the votes will be counted on the local level, right, within the counties? The state's not doing that?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And just another question. Of course, we've heard a lot about election security the last few weeks, especially calling into question the validity of mail-in elections. I want to kind of hear from you guys, what are the steps being taken, not just by the state, but by the counties to ensure that votes are being secured and that there's not quote unquote rampant fraud?
I think there's been some information that's been put out there from our office and from the Secretary of State's office explaining some of our processes that ensure the security of those voted ballots. The only people that should have those ballots in their hands are the people who, the voter themselves who we issued the ballot to, the U.S. Postal Service, or our office. Nobody else is able to return that other than a family member on their behalf. So that's one measure the state of Nevada provides to ensure there's no ballot harvesting or that those ballots are not getting into other people's hands to be, done with whatever might be done with them. We also have a signature verification process. This is the same process we have always used. So mail-in ballots and absentee ballots are nothing new. We have been doing this for quite a while. We are used to receiving those ballots, checking them in. Again, they're have unique identifiers on the ballots, and we check them in immediately, get them processed, do our signature verification process, and then they are locked in a secure location where there's only access by either my staff or there's some areas that require 2 staff members to be present in order to unlock those doors. So those are a lot of the security precautions that we take.
This is Heather, the Assistant Registrar. I just wanted to add that if a voter is concerned as to whether or not we have received their ballot back, they can verify this by going onto our website. And on our main page, they can put in their last name and their date of birth, and it'll pull up their information. It'll show when their ballot was mailed out and the date that we received it in. So if there's any questions in regards to whether or not we have it in our office, they can certainly check on that themselves. And then that way, if they're, we can assist them if there needs to be, a ballot reissued to them, maybe because they didn't get it because it went to a wrong address. So I just wanted to add that we do highly encourage our voters to go to our website and verify the information that we've received their ballot.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Hello, this is Scott Sonner at the Associated Press. A question I think it'd be for Wayne and Deanna in regard to the legal challenges that continue. I'm having trouble following all those deadlines, but my understanding is technically there could still be a ruling that would block the mail-in, the election. Is that true? And how likely do you think it is that that could happen?
This is Wayne Thorley with the Secretary of State's office. I'll take that question. There have been a number of legal challenges filed, both related to the primary election, but also related to other election processes such as initiative petitions and recall petitions. I won't predict what the court might do One of the legal challenges that was filed by a group called True the Vote, that group was challenging the authority that the state election officials and the county election officials had to conduct the election by mail. Their motion for preliminary injunction was dismissed by a federal judge several weeks ago. They have refiled an amended motion for preliminary injunction. I do not know the timeline on that and when the judge might rule on that. And again, I won't chime in on which way it might go. There was another legal challenge from the state Democratic Party that they have withdrawn, given some concessions that Clark County made. And so we are continuing with the all-mail election. As Registrar Spicula mentioned, about 14% of voters in Washoe County have already voted their ballot, whether by mail, returning it in person, or voting at the in-person early voting location. And we are going to continue to proceed with the all-mail election.
Any last questions from our media partners? Okay, with that, we will go ahead and close up this election portion of today's virtual media availability. Thank you for being with us, and we will go ahead now and introduce our Washoe County Health Officer, Mr. Kevin Dick, who is here to share a COVID-19 health response update with us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Amy. We have updates on new numbers for today. 26 additional cases being reported in Washoe County and 12 additional recoveries. So our total COVID cases, that brings to 1,485. Our deaths remain at 54. Our recoveries at 813 and our active cases at 618. So that's the highest number of active cases that we've had so far. We have about 62 individuals hospitalized and 122 that have been released from the hospital. Our hospital capacity remains very good. 68% of our acute care beds occupied, 50% of our ICU beds occupied, and only 13% of ventilators that are in use. We did have a large new case count yesterday, and I just wanted to comment on that. That case count was impacted by some delayed results that we received from a commercial lab that we were using out of state. And so those test results were over 10 days old. And so that impacted the number that was reported yesterday, but those are not contemporaneous new cases detected in the community. We wanted to remind the community that we are working on a seroprevalence study. This is a study that will allow us to use the antibody test that the Nevada State Public Health Lab at UNR has validated in order to determine the percent of our population that has been exposed to and developed antibodies to COVID-19 since this outbreak began. But I want to also emphasize that in order for us to be able to identify that percent of the population, we need to have people respond to the letter that we sent to randomly selected households to participate in the study. That will allow them to have a free antibody test done on an adult out of that household. And by people participating, they'll be helping our community to better understand what the extent of spread has been. So if anybody has received that letter from the Washoe County Health District, we ask that you please respond. We are extending the deadline to respond and register with us for that testing. And we anticipate that will be occurring during the week of June 8th. Separately, we are also doing testing next week beginning on June 1st, where we will be opening up our drive-through post for community-based testing that will include asymptomatic individuals. So if people are interested in being tested, and this is not the antibody test, this is the test for specifically whether you have the COVID-19 virus right now. If you are interested in getting tested through the drive-through testing, you can contact us through 311, through the 328-2427 number, or through the COVID-19 website that Washoe County has set up to be able to submit your information and get scheduled for testing. We'll be operating that testing between 8 and noon, Monday through Saturday, the 1st through the 6th of June. So that's an opportunity for anybody that wants to be tested, and that's the nasal swab that's used for that test to participate in that event. Last night, the governor released his press release on the phase 2 reopening. And so we have a number of new business types that are allowed to reopen, as well as churches. Churches and other gatherings are limited to 50 people or less. So that's our continuing step forward with the reopening of the economy, phase 2, also titled the Silver State Stabilization. Pools are included in that reopening, and so just a message from the health district on pool reopenings. We'll be sending out information, an email to all of our certified pool operators. That's a program the health district has for pool operators to be certified that oversee the operations of our public pools in Washoe County. And rather than trying to conduct a pre-opening inspection as we typically do, we're working to expedite the opening of these public pools. And that email will include information about a checklist that we'll be using to have the certified pool operators self-certify their compliance with the health district's regulations prior to the pool opening. And then we'll have inspectors from the health district that will get out and inspect those pools as we can get them scheduled and get out to them. So we're relying on the certified pool operators to do their job to ensure that those pools are operating in compliance so that they can be enjoyed by members of our community. So I know we're running a little late. I'll cut my briefing off there and be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the
Kevin,
media,
Megan.
for our health district, our health officer?
Hi, Kevin. This is Megan Mesterly at the Nevada Independent. Can you hear me?
You're a little low, but I think I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask you about the new positive cases that we're seeing. Obviously, they're not, spiking or peaking. You mentioned sort of that one fluke why we saw numbers increase yesterday, but I mean, it doesn't look like the numbers are really decreasing. For instance, looking at the new cases daily trend graph that you all have on your dashboard, is that something that we expect? Is that because of reopening? Is that just still attributable to these holiday gatherings that we've had? I mean, why have we not seen cases continue to decrease?
So you're correct, Megan. What we are seeing is we're kind of remaining along a plateau. We're not seeing a big decline in the new cases of COVID that we're detecting. And it's important for our community to understand that. It means that we still have COVID-19 out in the community. We do have spread that's occurring. And that's why it's very important for people to wear facial coverings when they're out to help reduce that spread, maintain the social distancing, and to stay at home when they can is really probably the safest place for people to be. What I think we're seeing is probably some of the effects of the reopening of the economy as we've reduced those mitigation measures that we had with the non-essential businesses remaining closed. We expected to see additional impacts of more contacts that were occurring of people visiting different places and seeing people in the community. And so as we're doing those increasing those activities with the reopening. It's very important for people to take all the precautions that we're recommending in order to prevent us from having that plateau that we're on turn into an upward trend. So we need to be vigilant, and if we work really hard, I think we can have our economy reopen, and hopefully we can get some further reduction of cases from people just being responsible and doing their part for everyone in the community, so that we can have a thriving economy.
Hi, this is Marisol with KTVN. Moving into phase 2, what are some things that you guys are looking out for?
Well, as I said, it's really the people continuing to practice the social distancing, to have good plans in place for how they will be providing the sanitation of their businesses and disinfection, to have their employees wearing the facial coverings, to have the customers coming to the businesses wearing facial coverings, to do the monitoring, nobody with symptoms coming to work. All of those practices that we've been emphasizing, we'll continue to be pushing for and watching for people to be practicing those.
Hi, this is Siobhan from the RGJ. How far are we from kind of widespread, reliable antibodies testing, would you say?
I really can't give you an answer to that, Siobhan. There are, I think, over 100 different antibody tests that have been developed by different commercial labs, and they have a wide variation in how well they perform. And I think we've seen that some of these tests, based on the degree of specificity and sensitivity they have, could be a 50% chance of getting a false positive when in fact you haven't developed the antibodies. So we're fortunate that the state lab has been able to validate the antibody test that they're using that has 99.6% specificity and 100% sensitivity. So it's a very good test to use, but at this point it's not available for the general public. Take advantage of that opportunity if you've been invited to participate in our study to get that antibody test, because it's very reliable to indicate whether you have been exposed.
Are you getting the results just to see or look at from like LabCorp, who's doing this antibody test? Are you guys looking at those results and just seeing what they say at all?
We are not reviewing the antibody results from the commercial labs. We're using the molecular tests that identify whether somebody has the COVID-19 virus, and that's so that we can do that case investigation and contact tracing.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Marisol with KTVN again. I wanted to go back to the counts that came in yesterday. I know you kind of touched on them a little bit. We saw that 18 were people that were homeless. Did they come from the Reno Event Center, as well as did they go back after testing, or where did they go to?
So those were people that were part of the shelter population from the Reno Event Center. We did a mobile post there on May 14th to do the testing of that population. Unfortunately, the commercial lab that we had contracted with did not fulfill their obligation of the turnaround time on those samples, and that's why those test results were so delayed. I don't have information on whether those individuals returned to the shelter each and every day in that period. I can tell you that Memorial Day evening, when we received the test results, we did have health district staff that were at the shelter working to identify individuals that were there to be sheltered that evening that had tested positive and to determine whether they were symptomatic or not. There were 10 individuals, is my understanding, that that were there at the shelter Memorial Day evening, but none of those individuals were symptomatic, and therefore the data was really too late for us to do anything with those individuals. If we'd received it more quickly, the protocol would have been for them to be isolated for a 10-day period. But after that 10-day period, with them continuing to be asymptomatic after testing, there was no action to be taken.
And following up on that as well, did you guys clean the Reno Event Center after, or are you guys cleaning every day?
We aren't responsible for operating the Reno Event Center, but Volunteers of America is, and they do have a rigorous cleaning process for that facility.
Hi, Kevin. This is Lucia Starbuck from This Is Reno, and I just wanted to follow up on that. So just making sure I'm getting this right. So because the test results came in too late, it was already past the point. So even if they did test positive and were asymptomatic, they can't spread it anymore. Is that why they're not being isolated?
That's correct. That's our protocol for asymptomatic individuals that test positive. Is that 10-day period? There's no action to be taken after that.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, this is Marisol, sorry, with KTVN again. I just had one more question for you. With asymptomatic testing, how will they be distributed and how reliable are they?
The asymptomatic testing will be available first come, first serve for the people that would like to be tested during our event next week. We do have capacity for about 900 tests per day throughout that period. The asymptomatic testing of asymptomatic is problematic as far as reliability because we know that there are false negatives that can occur when people are infected and have not yet come down with symptoms for the disease. So it is one way of assessing what we're seeing in the population, but this is different from the seroprevalence study that we're doing. Since it's people that are self-selecting for the testing, there's a bias in that process of people being tested versus it being a randomly selected sample that represents the overall population of Washoe County. So there's some information that can be gleaned from that. It's useful for those individuals to know at that point in time whether they had enough virus in their system to be testing positive or not. But that doesn't mean that somebody coming through for that testing next week may test negative. They may already have been infected and could come down with COVID-19 the next day. There's a 14-day incubation period for the disease. It also doesn't mean that somebody that comes through for that testing isn't then being exposed to somebody with COVID-19 the next day and then comes down with the disease at some point in the future. But we are participating in this event. The governor has requested that we do asymptomatic testing. It provides us an opportunity to stress test our operations as far as the sample collection and then our contact tracing activities following the testing.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Laura with Reno Al Dia. Now that we're opening a lot of places on phase 2, do you think it would be good or best if you guys make mandatory to wear a face mask? Or do we see it in the future? Because a lot of people are out there and not wearing anything.
I think that in the end, we don't really have a way to be everywhere at all times to ensure that people are wearing face masks. And so we will continue to message, as the governor has, the importance that people wear a facial covering and to recognize that it's their responsibility to come together as a community to succeed as we move through this crisis. If we are going to be able to have the reopening and the economy and the opportunities that we want in our community. So I would urge everybody to put politics aside, to understand that we are in an unprecedented time with a pandemic outbreak that none of us have ever in our lifetimes experienced, and to pull together and protect one another so we can be successful through this.
Yeah, the issue is that there's many people that are not responsible. They're not respecting others. So I think for them, it should be mandatory.
I understand what you're saying, but at this point, we're continuing the message for everybody to cooperate and be responsible.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, this is Lucia Starbuck again, and I'm just curious, are you concerned about seeing like another surge in cases? Because I just feel like last week we were talking about like not gathering for holidays, not gathering with people outside of your household, and now up to 50 people can meet up, can gather. Is that a concern?
Of course, there's a concern that we would have another surge in the outbreak, and that's why we're watching our numbers, and the governor is watching the numbers statewide. And if we see things that start moving in the wrong direction, the governor has assured us that he will step back with our approach. But there's not an easy answer to what's the best thing to do. I think the governor has been deliberative in his process, and I support his decisions as we move into phase 2.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and wrap up the Q&A for now, and I wanted to let our media partners know as soon as our availability is over, I'll be posting 3 handouts for you in the chat area of this team's meeting, and that is a 1-page overview of those election results timeline that we discussed earlier, as well as an updated media guidance for this primary election, and a link to a couple of those videos that were referenced earlier as well. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us and being here today, both our media partners and all our experts. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.